Then comes TikTok. TikTok has completely captured the attention of the youth.
Yeah.
And one thing that the algorithm on TikTok is doing very well is that it boosts creators with zero followers.
Oh,
So if you go on Facebook, the most popular accounts were the ones who were famous or very high regarded or just had, 100,000 friends on Facebook.
yeah.
Those people could gain a lot of exposure. TikTok operates with a completely different logic. If you
Okay.
make a video that can capture people's attention, you make, I don't know, a confession video where you're saying something that is really, useful for many people, the algorithm can boost your profile rapidly. So you can go from having zero followers to having, I don't know, 10,000 followers very, very quickly.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Your Lab Central. Today, I have with me Tobias. So, Tobias, would you like to tell our audience why they should be excited about this conversation today?
So I just published a new book. It's called Death to Algorithms. As the title suggests, it's about algorithms.
Hmm.
Over the last 5 years, approximately, I've been writing about law and tech and ethics and AI, which I know you're also interested in. And I thought a lot about how digital technology impacts our culture, our relationships, our democracy,
Yeah.
the way we view our world. It's very, very impactful. So
Hmm.
what I have tried to do is that I have collected my thoughts in this book, and to make it more practical. When we're talking about this stuff, it's very easy for it to turn very philosophical and abstract, and that's not my strong suit. I have a legal background, so I like when things are practical and squared in. So
Yeah.
what I do in the book is that I have studied how different algorithms work in practice. So I have studied how the algorithm on Netflix works, how the algorithm on Facebook and TikTok works, and how the algorithm on Match.com, it was not really an algorithm, but it was the first dating site. And then I write about as well how Tinder's algorithm work.
Hmm.
So those algorithms encompass how algorithmic technology impacts our entertainment, so on
Hmm.
streaming services, and also our social relationship, and
Yeah.
also entertainment on social media, and finally our dating opportunities on dating apps. So one part of the book is to understand how these algorithms actually work. That
Hmm.
being said, it's not that much of a technical book. What I think sets this book apart from so much other literature is that I really focus on the social and cultural commentary and the philosophy and the big ideas of how these algorithms actually impact people. So
Right.
my focus is not as much algorithms in a technical sense. I want to study them more in terms of their impacts.
Right. Now, from the little that I know about these algorithms, right, they're designed to ensure that people stay on the platform for as long as possible, right? And to do that, they have to continuously show up with content that is possibly what the person has been interested in or is currently showing interest in, if I'm not wrong, right? So, in that sense, sometimes what these algorithms come up with is that you are constantly getting into or just going deeper into a rabbit hole, right? Of say a particular idea which you just stumbled upon and probably liked by mistake, and then probably just going into and you get start going deeper and deeper. Probably it could be for the better or for the worse, right? So how is it playing out, and what if you could share one or two findings before we delve into the practical stuff?
Sure. I agree exactly what you're saying. The purpose of these recommender systems in our current digital environment is to farm engagement from people. So they want to take as much as people's time, energy, attention, and most important of all, data. That's common knowledge nowadays.
Yeah.
Many people knows it, and there's also a lot of debate about it on social media. Many people are outraged about it, understandably, like I am. From You will also meet people in the other camp who are downplaying the impacts. Obviously, social media, streaming services, dating apps, they have done many good things for the world as well. Many people have met their partner through a dating app. Social media is a great tool to meet new people. Me and you, for instance, would never have
Yeah,
met each other if it wasn't for social media. Also,
that's right.
streaming,
Hmm.
there's so many great movies, great albums that people are discovering thanks to recommender systems. So it's not all bad. From what I see it, there are mainly two problems with this. There are many, many other things we could get into, but these are like two of the biggest problems. First of all, it creates a lot of addiction.
Hmm.
If you look at how young people use apps and social media these days,
Yeah,
it's very normal that they spend 5 hours a day in front of a smartphone. Imagine that. There was a study recently which really shook me.
right,
One of the main findings was that students, if the current trajectory holds, students will on average spend 25 years of their life in front of a smartphone. That's
right.
just mind blowing to think about, right?
Yeah.
So, so sure, these algorithms, they are great in one sense.
Hmm.
You could almost argue that they're too great because they capture too much time of our
Yeah.
attention.
Hmm.
So that's one of the big issues. The other one is that whoever controls the algorithms nowadays controls the flow of information, and that puts way too much power in the hands of a few company. Meta is best example, but also TikTok and to a smaller extent Google. They claim a lot of controls over how people think and perceive the world,
Yeah.
but they are private actors. Their
Hmm.
goal is to increase shareholder value at all cost.
Yeah.
They don't care as much about people's well-being or how society is governed. Of course, I'm not saying that Google CEO is evil or that these people want to harm society. The problem is just that the nature of private companies is that they focus on stock value and numbers go up, numbers go up. That's unfortunately just how the system is built.
Yeah.
So these actors have a lot of power, and that overall have a very harmful effect on society. And that's complicated, but if we want to see the effects of it, we can look to the United States right now, where
Hmm.
Trump is in for a second term, and things are really chaotic. I think personally, and this is just my belief, it's not a fact, but I think that social media has a lot of influence on Trump's election as president again. He really understands how to leverage TikTok. He made the stance that so many young people found was funny. He says, he makes so many funny jokes on social media.
Yeah.
He is like a viral president.
Right.
So he's funny and he's very good at polarizing, and he doesn't really care a lot about truth.
Yeah.
And who else don't really care about truth? Recommender systems on social media. They want to engage people. They are not
Yeah.
interested in this right and wrong or
Hmm.
what information is beneficial for people to receive. They just
Hmm.
want to keep people trapped. So there's a really vicious cycle here where these
Hmm.
social media platforms now so big and powerful that they actually can control politics to a certain extent, and that's very bad for democracy.
Yeah. Okay, now I have three different questions that have just hit my mind. Okay, since we're talking about the social media platforms, right? These platforms have had both, as you mentioned, positive and negative effects, right? Now, commercially, obviously, the private actors aside, the ones who are controlling it, but the algorithms themselves have supported a lot of people, say content creators or just me or some other content creator come up with original content ideas and then reach an audience, right? And then there are other people who have been badly affected, as you mentioned, addiction, right? Now, let's look at it from both these lenses, right? The people who have been negatively affected, say due to addiction or wasting a lot of time, or as you mentioned, the youth at this point might be spending 25 years of their whole life. At some point of time, they'll go on to do that, right? And it is a fact. I mean, I've seen myself, I've seen my usage go up to close to 5, 6 hours a day when it comes to the mobile, right? My screen time going up to that. Now, so if we look at it that ways, would that be how should we be looking at as personal consumers, right? To try to limit ourselves and not get into the trap of getting addicted to social media, right? And then we'll get to the positive part of it.
Okay, so sorry, there was a bit of an outage in the internet connection, but you wanted to know the positive and the negative case of the social media algorithms.
Yeah, the first where I want to start with is how can, as a personal consumer, right? We know that the algorithm is designed to farm engagement, but then from a personal
Mhm.
perspective, how should we not fall into this trap? Yes.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's something I've thought a lot about.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, like my approach is a pretty radical one. I think we should limit our use of social media a lot. And that's just from my own personal experience. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go out and say that I have the answers to this, I've solved it,
Yeah.
because obviously I'm struggling with some of these problems too, like many people are. So I'm not going to claim that I have the solution. But for me, I really try to be aware of how much time I spend on mindless scrolling. I
Yeah.
try not to use TikTok. I try not to spend too much time on YouTube Shorts. I try
Yeah.
not to use Instagram or Facebook at all.
Mm-hmm.
Even LinkedIn, I find difficult. Um, there's a lot of very, very interesting content on LinkedIn
Yeah.
that is really helpful for the stuff I'm writing about and for my work and life. And there's also a lot of content that is empty and meaningless clickbait.
Yeah.
So it's really problematic that you have high quality content and slop mixed
Yeah.
together in a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I try to limit. I'm mostly on YouTube is my number one. YouTube is barely a social media. It's like 50% social media, 50% streaming platform.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time on YouTube. I'll be honest with you, but that's because I think there are many interesting videos,
Yeah.
and the recommender system is really really good. So you can
Mm-hmm.
fall into a YouTube rabbit hole very easily.
Yeah.
However, I do enjoy long format videos, like the long podcast episodes.
Mm-hmm.
There are many people who put out solo videos where they talk for 20 minutes about some social issues or about AI.
Yeah.
I find those videos very engaging, and it's also something that I learn a lot from.
Yeah.
So I use YouTube as, yeah, it is kind of an addiction, like all other social media platforms are, but it's also something I learned from. So I don't think I would quit YouTube. Then I use LinkedIn, but I try to use it in a very limited scope.
Mm-hmm.
I would not spend much more than 10 minutes a day on it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I use Substack. Substack is a social media site too. And that's where I write, newsletter posts, and I've done a few podcast episodes as well. So I'm not gonna lie, I can get very hooked on, likes and how many people have watched it and the
Yeah.
stats for all my posts. And I think almost everyone are. But I try to hide the stats as much as I can, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to do it according to a schedule. So I will only log into a Substack, let's say one time a day between 9 and 10 in the morning, for instance, and that's my max. So I have kind of office hours where I stay away
Yeah.
from Substack.
Mm-hmm. Now, let's look at the positive side, right? Where people have created real wealth by getting onto these platforms, reaching out to people, and having them join them in their own movements, right? From that perspective, from the creator perspective, or from a I know, a personal brand perspective, right? Where you go onto platform and you personally are also in have the objective of farming engagement, right? Not just the platform itself, but you're also out there to farm engagement. How have you seen people leverage this, not just via the conventional ways of looking at hooks or getting good content? Is there anything that you have found out from your studies?
Yeah, I'll give you one very good example, I think.
Hmm.
So Facebook has had a monopoly on social media for many years.
Yeah,
That's where everybody was on Facebook, events happened on Facebook, and so on and so forth.
yeah.
But over the last 10 years, 15 years, people have turned their backs to Facebook, especially young people,
Hmm.
for many reasons. The main reason is that it's just not that fun. Then comes TikTok. TikTok has completely captured the attention of the youth.
Yeah.
And one thing that the algorithm on TikTok is doing very well is that it boosts creators with 0 followers.
Oh,
So if you go on Facebook, the most popular accounts were the ones who were famous or very high regarded or just had, 100,000 friends on Facebook.
yeah.
Those people could gain a lot of exposure. TikTok operates with a completely different logic. If you
Okay.
make a video that can capture people's attention, you make, I don't know, a confession video where you're saying something that is really, useful for many people, the algorithm can boost your profile rapidly. So you can go from having 0 followers to having, I don't know, 10,000 followers very, very quickly. So
Mm-hmm.
there's this really quick way for getting exposure, which is great, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't use TikTok. I'm afraid of the rabbit hole effect, as you also mentioned. That's the exact term I also use in the book, where
Mm-hmm.
you can get caught onto some videos that are very negative. Let's say, for instance, that you're a young woman and you're very self conscious about your weight.
Yeah.
Suddenly, you'll get video to video after video with weight cutting tips and
Mm-hmm.
videos with a very depressive atmosphere, and you'll start to feel worse and worse and worse.
That's
So
right.
that's what the TikTok algorithm also can do,
Mm-hmm.
which is really bad. But on the positive side, as I see it, TikTok doesn't play the same kind of status games as Facebook. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I feel like. The profiles that are very popular have the biggest megaphones to come across with their messages. Where at TikTok, the playing field is more equal. Anyone can have an interesting opinion, and suddenly they'll gain the ears of many people, which is great.
Okay. Now, the last part that I had, right, was basically about AI, since we had that also as a part of our conversation. Now, again, AI has
Mhm.
also come into the picture with a similar revolutionary, paradigm, right, where people are coming onto it, asking it a lot of questions. Now, the fundamental thing about AI is that it is very useful for the common person, right? You ask it a question or you give it a few tasks, it will automate the regular things for you. But then again, the problem is that it's not as philanthropic as it seems to be, right? Again, as we mentioned, that social media is controlled by a few private players. The AI that we
Mm.
have today is not research led from the point that it is meant to be for the public good. It is held by private players for their own benefit, right? Now, there comes the whole point, right? What the AI will answer is basically being controlled by somebody who's designed it, right? Now, this again, this thought basically I came to know from a conference, another reel that I saw on social media, right? About somebody giving
Mhm.
out their own opinions during a conference, AI conference.
Mhm.
So that's how I came to know, and I am fairly agree with it, right? Now, this paradigm where we have a few private players controlling what a specific AI will answer, right? How do you look at it, and then how should people weigh in whenever they ask an AI to look for an answer for them, rather than going for the conventional way where they went to Google or some other search platform and then look for the answers for themselves, right? Although Google could control what answer they were seeing, but then again, at least they had the choice. right? Right now, they're just been giving the answer, right?
That's a great question. And it's something I have thought a lot about. I'll tell you, I've been writing online for 5 years now. And
Hmm.
over the last 3 years, I've mainly been writing about AI. I'm so fascinated by it, and it can do a lot of positive. But as
Yeah,
you said, if there are like big companies that control these technologies and perhaps use them in ways that are not ideal, they can have a lot of negative impacts as well. I actually wanted to write a book about AI. That would have been great. The issue is that right now, I don't think it's possible for me, at least, to write a book about AI because there's so much happening in the space.
yeah,
So whatever I say now, everything could look different in 6 months, and most likely it will be.
yeah,
So I still feel like we're in a stage with AI where it's hard to see where it develops from here.
hmm,
There's been a lot of talk about whether or not AI is a bubble. There's been a lot of talk of whether or not AI could advance into something like super intelligence, where
yeah,
we'll have a whole new set of problems. We don't really know where we stand.
hmm,
How much will AI impact people compared to social media algorithms? Many of these problems we have witnessed with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, where young people especially are very lonely and depressed and angry. The algorithms can be polarizing. There's information overload. There's a lot of misinformation. There are so
yeah,
many of these issues. Many of
yeah,
the same issues would apply to chatbots.
yes,
How much do they, is it as bad? There's been some really tragic cases where young children have been actually committing suicide. I hope I can say that on a challenge on the challenge without getting banned. But uh, because of advice from AI chatbots, and that's really really heartbreaking.
hmm,
But in my opinion, we can look to social media as from my perspective. The AI we have now is just another paradigm on top of social media. It's the
right,
same kind of infrastructure.
yeah,
AI is just another level on top of it.
hmm,
So AI, as you said, it can do amazing things for us. It can make our lives easier in many ways. Finding knowledge is much easier and more convenient. But how much will AI contribute to the mental health crisis and misinformation? I still don't know. I still don't think we know for sure. We will know maybe better in 2 years or 1 year or 5 years. But right now, I think it's very unclear how AI impact really is.
right. I mean, you mentioned right about misinformation coming through an AI developed solution, because I think last year or a couple of years ago, when different countries were coming up with their own conversational AI models, right? They had very specific. I mean, if you looked at a conversational AI coming out of China, any question that you asked about the regime was not being answered, right? It just said
Mhm.
that I don't know, I am not, or I'm not, or not authorized to answer something of that sort. But if you go out and do the same question with a conversational chatbot coming out from, say, the USA, it will give you a lot of different kinds of answers. And that's how misinformation or just information could be limited. The access could be limited to, right? And then there are the safety aspects, as you mentioned. Somehow it will help with the mental health crisis, because you can't really tell because some people just call it a black hole, right? How it will react, or why is it responding in a certain aspect. And you can just play around with temperature or something of that sort, as how crazy can an answer really be.
Mm.
Now, from your experience, how's it been working with social media while trying to understand how it works against and for people? How are you getting along, and is there anything specific that you're doing other than the book itself?
Yeah, like I feel like the market dynamics surrounding AI and social media is identical.
Hmm.
So the problem is that all these big players like Meta, Google, and OpenAI, they come out and say that, oh, we're so concerned about people and we're doing our best to make our products safe and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But over time, these arguments kind of degenerate. The problem is that for these companies, profits are like the case also was with social media, what's important in the end.
Hmm.
So the companies will find out that they can gain a small advantage by taking it a bit easy on security for their models.
Yeah.
When one company is doing it, other companies will typically follow. For instance, Grok, Elon Musk's AI model
Yeah.
by XAI, it's fairly unhinged. There are some guardrails, but it's fairly unhinged. Um, Recently, OpenAI, they launched Sora, the AI-generated TikTok video app, where you can take the image of real people and insert them into very, very realistic-looking videos.
Yeah.
So the potential for misinformation is just so great. And also, with, for instance, dead people like Michael Jackson, if I were like Michael Jackson's grandson or son, I would feel pretty offended if there were like a million teenagers who were making, cringe videos with my dead father. I would be angry. And these kinds of behaviors are typical. And all the AI companies say that they do it for, that they're interested in humanity and they want to do what's best for us, but their actions tell us something else.
Hmm.
And again, it goes down to game theory. I really like the Moloch theory. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No, I'm not. Sorry. If you can just enlighten me, I'd like
Okay.
to.
Yeah, yeah. It's been a while since I read about it, but basically, Moloch is I think it's the god of coordination failure.
Okay.
So there's this. It's actually like an old myth from some culture that I can't remember right now. But it has, an image. It looks like, a certain kind of demon monster, kind of. And it's kind of an analogy to describe coordination failure. So the god of coordination failure. What it really means is that the systems can sometimes be broken. For instance, let's say climate change. Every country wants to make sure we have a good climate. We want to protect the earth.
Yeah.
But if there's one country or one company that can actually make profits from kind of taking it less seriously, then other countries and companies will also follow. Who's to blame for that? Not really anyone. It's the whole
Yeah.
system. So we use Moloch as a kind of analogy to describe that there's a failure in the system. And the same applies to the AI infrastructure. Right now, there's a failure in the system. Whoever wins a game are the AI company that is most unhinged and cares less about AI safety.
Hmm.
That's because that's deep down what people want. People want to be able to, not all people, but especially young people, and it's primarily young people that are driving culture. They are enticed by being able to speak with an AI model that they can talk, dirty to, and that can be, very controversial and say controversial things. And also these awful, awful, AI nude generators. That's also, again, Moloch at play. It's a system failure. And that's the problem in a nutshell, that the current environment that AI is being developed in is the same environment that social media was developed in, and it's not making the world a better place.
Right. Yeah, I would agree to a lot of it, right? I mean, things are broken currently, and I don't know if people are actually driven to the idea that these are things that we want to solve, because at some point it is driving engagement to AI, right? And this is good for the company that is basically making the AI solution, right? So I don't know where this goes, but then okay. This was a very interesting conversation, right? We talked about how AI could be mishandled and handled with care and something of that sort. Now, okay. So how can people get in touch with you before I close this conversation? Thank you so much for joining in. What have you been doing in the past, just recently, and then other than this book, what has been your life like?
Sure. So I've worked as a legal advisor on and off, but my main focus over the last year at least has been my book. And then secondly, my newsletter on futuristiclawyer.com. So if people want to follow me or get in touch with me, the best way is to visit that Substack domain. And secondly, they can check out my book. It's called Deaf to Algorithms, and there's a website for it. It's called Deaf, and then the number two, and then algorithms.com. Currently, you can purchase it for $6. And I think it's a very fun read, and it's also something you can learn a lot from, hopefully. And yeah, I really like having these kind of discussions and talk with people. So I think this has been great.
Okay, yeah. Now it hit me. There's this thing I wanted to ask you about. Since you're a lawyer, and then we had this long conversation about AI, right? There's this
Mhm.
situation where people have been using general models like ChatGPT, OpenAI, I mean, or Gemini, or anything else for technical legal advice, right? And there's this whole situation where private legal companies are going against or advising the government that people should not be doing this because it is taking away their business. But then again, sometimes for confidentiality reasons, because anything you feed to the AI is basically food for them to learn more and probably pick up secrets or something like that.
Mm.
How would you advise people to go through this path if they have to, and should they specifically lead to go to a technical advice with a lawyer? And there's also this thing that people are actually suggesting that these models be certified, that okay, this is a model that is certified to give you legal advice or something of that sort.
Yeah, so first of all, it's true. Like security and the confidentiality of information is something that people need to be aware of. So I can think of an example from my own life. Currently, I'm working with a lawyer with a case against a shop owner in my apartment building. And I have a very good lawyer, and I follow their correspondence, his correspondence against this shop owner. And I can clearly tell in the shop owner's responses that he is using AI to manufacture it. And he points to many laws, and I must say that his responses sound very, very clever. You know,
Uh-huh.
when I read them, I'm starting to think, do we even have a good case against him? So I have no doubts about AI's abilities. The
Hmm.
problem is, no matter how well the AI sound or how intelligent the AI sound, once you get sued, you can't really use it for much. You can't go into a courtroom and then put Gemini on your phone and ask it to act as your lawyer.
Yeah.
So it works well up until a point, but in cases like these where you're having a legal dispute, you cannot use AI in a courtroom.
Hmm.
So you still need a human lawyer, even though that AI is really amazing tool. I've
Hmm.
also worked with some legal tech companies and AI companies. One example that comes to mind is Equitas,
Hmm.
which is a AI legal firm based in New York. I came in contact with Equitas through Devansh, who's like a famous writer on Substack and works for this company. So I've played with their tool, and it's pretty much like ChatGPT for lawyers.
All
So
right.
it's ChatGPT, which is like specialized in legal knowledge and drafting contracts and so on, and it's very useful. So I'm not going to say that lawyers should not use AI. I think it's the future. It can
Right.
save so much work and so much efficiency. but there is also a lot of risks. So
Yeah,
privacy, confidentiality, hallucinations, they're more and more
that's right. Yeah.
eliminated. But the main point is that you can't use an AI tool to defend you in a courtroom.
Yeah.
So in the end, there's a limit to how useful it can be.
Okay, Tobias, thank you so much for joining in for this conversation and for the last question answer as well. I mean, yeah, it was just bouncing off in my head here and there, but then yeah, I hope the audience will take away a lot of information and insight from this conversation. To the audience who's been watching and listening intently, if you liked what we talked about, do leave a like. The comment section is open for questions, perspectives, any suggestions, or queries that you have regarding this topic itself. And yeah, if you've not subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe before you close the window. Thank you so much, Tobias, and thanks to the audience for staying up. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.